There you go.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday night study. Give everybody a chance to sign on.
Oh, changes faster on the YouTube. Interesting. Tonight, anyway.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you all.
Let us know if
Hopefully, some of you are logging on.
our audio is bad or if there's any issues. Please let us know. So, but here we are, Thursday night study in the book of Numbers. Tonight we are going to study Numbers part 2 of chapter 22. So should be an exciting video or audio lesson. Should be a good lesson tonight. So
It's a very
interesting lesson. Yeah.
That's funny. Very interesting.
It's interesting. It's a point of a lot of contention. So we'll dive into that and see how it goes. And I think it'll be a good one.
Miss Polly's just texting me that she just watched last week's. She had some things going on, so she missed a couple times. But she's like, I just watched it. I'm making it up.
Oh, cool. That's funny.
I'm
Well, thank you,
catching
Miss
up.
Polly.
Thanks for doing that.
So good. So
we
yeah.
appreciate it.
So we're going to pick up the narrative. Let's see, where are we? We'll recap yesterday or last week, and you'll hopefully you'll recall that we are talking about the prophet Balaam. This most of this chapter, this whole chapter actually, is about Balaam and what transpires with him. And oh, hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
I see Chris on board. So thanks for joining us. So if you are just joining us, we are going to be looking at the second half of chapter 22 in the book of Numbers. So make sure you pull that up. But basically, we're going to be talking about Balaam. Okay, and Balaam is quite an interesting character. He is a prophet. Nobody knows much about him. He just sort of appears, right? Kind of in the fashion of Melchizedek. So, oh, hey, Robin's on board. So, sizzling Ojai. Well, back down here in
Wow.
Westminster, the Marine layer has pushed in, so it's actually a little chilly.
Yeah, it
here,
was
so-
crazy. Like they said originally, was going to be ramping up to the 90s, like low to mid 90s all week, just getting hotter. But now I looked on my phone and it says, oh, no, it's just going to be in the 80s. Like they took away like 10 degrees of their prediction.
We're not complaining.
No, I'm
we're just
happy.
saying.
But I was like, well, that's very interesting. You don't do that very often.
Right.
Backpedaled, so the winds must not have shifted the way they thought they were going to
Right.
shift. But we're glad that you're here. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Chris and Robin.
So
Gay Z. Oh, that's me.
that's you. So as we said, we're going to be
Who is that?
studying Numbers chapter 22. We'll pick up the narrative. We'll recap very quickly. I think starting in verse 12. And again, as we were saying,
I'm going to
Balaam
go to the
is
split screen. If I can
yeah, let's go
get
to
it back
split
here.
screen.
Yeah.
So
Let me get it
there
back here.
There we go. He's a very enigmatic character. He's a very compromised character. He was a prophet, but he was not a Jew. He was a Gentile prophet. Appears to have been from Syria or up in that
Right.
region.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's
And
right.
as we go through this narrative, far too many people get caught up in this whole idea of, as we're going to see in Scripture, the idea of a talking donkey. And really that is actually kind of the minor point
Right.
of this whole narrative.
Right.
It's an interesting point because donkeys don't talk, right? Unless they're
Not-
supernaturally endowed
Not unless
by
God
Right.
makes them talk. He gives
Right.
them the ability to talk.
And I've
Although
heard
I feel
so-
like I can talk to a lot of animals.
Yeah, talk to
And they
Doolittle.
talk to me, but it's not the same as this here.
Right. And so many people, they get hung up in the materialistic, naturalistic perception of like, yes, Christians are well aware that donkeys don't talk, but we are also well aware that God does not work, or God does not dwell in the material world. He works in it. He doesn't dwell in the material world. He dwells in the heavenly realms, and he has the ability to do all kinds of things that do not obey, so to speak, do not obey the laws, the natural laws of our
Universe.
universe.
God is not bound by the laws of our
Exactly.
universe, but he created the universe. Like a good analogy is time. You know, we operate inside of this thing called time. There's
Right.
24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour, you know, the sun going around the moon, but God exists outside of time. I
Right.
mean, he exists inside of time for us, for our sake, but he transcends the boundaries of time.
Yes.
So he can also transcend the boundaries of anything he wants because he created the universe. So
Right.
he could make a donkey talk if he wants to, you know,
Right.
he can
So
do
one way
anything
to
he wants
think about it, is using
Hey Brian.
the hey Brian, using the time analogy is that if your universe was the inside of an analog watch
Yeah.
or clock,
Mm-hmm.
and that's your whole universe, it's orderly, it's predictable, it operates under certain laws of mechanics and physics.
Gravity.
But the watchmaker,
Mm-hmm.
the watchmaker has the ability to pop the back off of that clock or that watch and reach in with his tool
Right.
and make adjustments that the inhabitants of the universe, perhaps to carry the analogy, could not do.
The watch itself could.
So
The watch couldn't adjust itself.
right, so
Or
from
repair
that
itself.
from that perspective, it's miraculous. But it's really the watchmaker stepping into the universe of the insides of the watch.
I have a super good analogy.
Ooh, she has a good analogy.
A super good analogy.
Hit
So,
me, Doc. Hit me, Doc.
has anyone been watching any of the Lego movies?
Oh,
Because
that's not a good analogy.
no, it is because okay, I've been kind of binging the Lego movies lately.
I have
Don't
not.
ask me why. I don't know. One came up. I started watching it. Lego Movie 2. I saw Lego Movie 1. You know when it came out years ago. I just never really watched any of the other ones except for the Batman one. That was pretty good. But the whole premise of the Lego movies is that, you know, the pieces, the characters, the Lego people, you know, they're operating inside of Lego land, this universe,
Lego
these
universe,
lands
yeah.
that they inhabit. Like the last one was the Ninja Lego movie. So Ninjago is the city, and you know there's a land of Ninjago and everything. So, but every once in a while during the movie, what I think is super cool is like it shows like the real people, the boy and the girl, or the mom and the dad, the people, the humans that really exist that are playing with the Legos. Or in Ninja Lego movie, it was a cat. They accidentally activated the ultimate weapon, which was a laser pointer. And the laser pointer, they didn't know what that was, but the laser pointer caught the attention of Meowthra, which is the worst villain ever, and Meowthra, and so it's actually in the movie, it's a real house cat. It's not animated. So it shows this real house cat, you know, coming on to the Legos and of course crushing things and playing with things. So it's similar, you know.
Same
is
idea.
That, is that these
something outside of the universe?
yeah,
stepping
exactly.
into it,
Can
yeah.
step in and like does things and interacts with them, and then they're like, "Oh my gosh, what's that?" You know. So
Hey, Manny and Marie are on
Hey.
board. Hey, Manny
And
Marie,
Angie.
and Angie, Miss Angie, and
Hey.
Brian came on. So yeah, you guys are heading home. Good. Manny had quite the adventurous week. It included a birthday, and it included some other things.
Yay!
Yeah. but
Happy
we're
birthday!
Very glad that you joined us.
Yes,
and Miss
thank
Angie,
you.
we're always glad that you tune in.
I'm glad the
You know,
Ohio represent.
represent
Ohio rep.
So all that to say, all of that long introduction is to say, it's like, one, recognize that God can and does do miracles. And so
Right.
a talking donkey is not outside the realm of God's abilities.
Exactly.
And the talking donkey is really the minor player in this whole narrative.
Right.
The whole narrative is really the character of Balaam.
Right.
And it's a character study that we would do well to pay attention to, because we see it in our modern world all the time. Very religious, and I use that word intentionally, very religious appearing people who are not really truly walking with God.
Exactly.
So
right.
so let's dive into
right.
this.
So
Okay?
it's a very interesting
Yeah.
section of scripture.
So here we go. Recapping just briefly from last week, starting in verse 12.
But God said to Balaam, "Do not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." Sorry. So Balaam got up in the morning and said to Balak's representatives, go back to your land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you.
So at this point, we learned several things. We talked about this last week. Balaam does in fact hear from God. He hears correctly from God. He understands what God is saying. But as we'll see, he is also a compromised individual.
Right.
So at this point, though, in the narrative, he does say the right thing. He hears from God, and he says, nope, can't go with you.
Right.
Verse 14.
And the representatives from Moab got up and went to Balak and said, Balaam refused to come with us. Then Balak sent representatives once again, more numerous and more distinguished than the previous.
And again, remember that this is not like, oh, they're just going down the street and saying, oh man, or calling him up and saying, yo, this dude would not listen to us or didn't want to come with us. No, they had to journey back to Balak, and then they had to meet with him, and then a plan was formulated.
Went out.
A plan was formulated to send yet more representatives, and it makes note, more of them and more distinguished, i.e. probably wealthier.
Right.
Wealthier and more powerful.
Like, higher up in his, contingent of people.
Right.
That's what I said last time. Like, maybe he sent his cupbearer or his sergeant of arms or, somebody, not just a servant,
Right, but an ambassador or somebody
at a higher level in his service, so that it would be more impressive, and they would have him like fancier camels or fancier outfits, and sent the captain of the guard, not just one of his guards.
Right. So here we go. So now picking up where we left off, verse 16.
They came to Balaam. This is the new high-powered contingent. Came to Balaam and said to him, this is what Balak the son of Zippor says. I beg you, let nothing keep you from coming to me, for I will indeed honor you richly, and will do whatever you tell me. Please come, then curse this people for me.
Again, Balak, his whole goal is to have God or have God's prophet curse the Israelites.
Pronounce a curse on the right,
so that the Israelites would not overtake his his territory. Okay, but we already have the insight and the hindsight of knowing that the Israelites are God's chosen people, and God will punish them, but He is not going to curse them.
Right.
Okay. So, but so they're putting on the hard sell. They're giving Balaam the hard sell, and they're enticing him with material goods, riches. And it says, "For I will indeed honor you richly," and that doesn't mean he's going to get a trophy.
No, it means he's going to get lots of money, money.
Right.
Money.
Verse 18.
But Balaam replied to the servants of Balak, even if Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything, either small or great, contrary to the command of the Lord my God. Now please, you also stay here tonight, and I will find out what else the Lord will say to me.
Now,
so he starts off right, but then he just veers over with, like, maybe I can manipulate God. Maybe if I ask him again, the answer will be different. So
this is where
the compromise
comes is starting to veer off out of his lane, and he's starting to go into the weeds. Right here at this passage that we just read. Okay, so he starts off right, but many other commentators have noted that the way this is phrased, it's like, if you ever saw the movie The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible is working as an insurance agent, and he was like, I would like to help you, and I would like to tell you if you filed such and such form that you would probably get reimbursed for your expenses, and I would like to say that, this is how you can get this issue resolved. And that's kind of what's going on here. Balaam is basically saying, even if you gave me a house full of riches, of silver and gold,
I just can't do it. But
I can't do anything unless God gives me the okay.
Well, which is correct. But then he says, But spend the night and let me see.
Well, it's
Correct.
technically correct.
Yeah.
But what he should have said is like, God said no.
Right.
Thank you, but God said no.
Right.
Bye.
Right.
That's the simple answer.
God told me the answer
Right.
is no.
Right. And herein lies a lesson for us as believers. You can count on the enemy and his minions to pull stunts like this. If you just compromise your faith just in this little area, it's not going to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You can still be a Christian. Nobody's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start entertaining that. Well, God says that's a sin. But maybe if I did it this way, it wouldn't technically be a sin. And that's what we say.
Right.
This is what we're observing in Balaam right here.
Right.
Okay.
If we only have a little,
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
and this is the important point. This is kind of the issue, or the take home, the takeaway from this narrative. Balaam is a compromised man of God, which is an oxymoron to the utmost, right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
A compromised man of God is just something that should not exist. But all you have to do is go on the internet. In fact, I didn't finish reading the story, but there was a big article about yet another very prominent pastor who's fallen from grace. You know, now, I'm not being judgmental. We all have the propensity to fall from grace.
Right.
But the enemy delights when a person of high status, high power, high
Influence and
and
things.
recognition, a godly person falls from grace. The enemy delights in that, and the world gloms onto that, actually. So
Right.
Balaam, what he's done here is he said, like, he answers mostly correctly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I can't do anything
Just on
contrary
the
to what the
edge.
Lord says.
Yeah.
Okay. But stay the night, and let's see what kind of a deal I can work out with God. Let's see if I can maybe, explain my situation.
Right.
As if God needs us to explain anything to him.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
right? So this is where we are. This is where we are in the narrative. This compromise has seeped in, okay? And you're going to hear the word compromise a lot tonight, because this whole chapter is about compromise. Robin says, there it is. Why did God care if the curses would have no effect? Okay. Well,
Mostly because they're asking him to do it in the name of
Yes.
Jehovah God.
yes.
So-
they're asked.
Because they're saying, "Oh, you're the God's prophet,"
Right.
So that's why he would be misrepresenting. I mean, that's my answer anyway.
He's
He's
misrepresenting,
misrepresenting
but he's
God.
also besmirching the character of God.
Right.
Because God has said, "These are my people; they're a blessed people. I will bless them." And then if Balaam curses them, quote unquote, in the name of God, it's besmirching his character, and so it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Now God can handle the punch. It's not like he's gonna wither, but it's an affront. It's an affront to God, and we are simply not to do that.
Promise.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So-
God don't do that.
Right.
Okay.
So if he's like now going to turn around and curse Israel,
Yeah.
when he said, "You are my chosen people,"
Right.
and I've promised to give you the promised land, and I promised Abraham to make his descendants
Right.
as many more numerous than can be counted.
Right. So that's an excellent question, Robin. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, verse 20.
And God came to Balaam at night and said to him, "If the men have come to call you, rise and go with them, but you shall do only the thing that I tell you." So Balaam arose in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the leaders of Moab. So God said, "Okay, go ahead and go with them."
So God did not change his mind.
Right.
He did not change his mind, but he is going to use this as a lesson to Balaam and ultimately to us, reading it centuries later, because it's a very clear example of how a compromised life leads to serious negative consequences.
Right.
So yeah, definitely worth paying attention to. Verse 22.
But God was angry that he was going, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the road as an adversary against him. Now he was riding on his donkey, and his 2 servants were with him.
So God knows that Balaam is compromised. He knows that Balaam is willing to go and perhaps pronounce a curse which God did not, I'll say, authorize.
Right. God told him specifically
Yeah,
not to do.
Not to do.
And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go.
Yeah, and so he says, go ahead. So basically when it says God told him to get up and go with the men, basically he's like, you want to go down this road? Go ahead. You're going to find out that these actions have serious consequences. And he's not saying that because he's not toying with Balaam. He's not toying with Balaam. He's instructing Balaam is what he is.
Right.
He knows the outcome, and he wants Balaam to get this lesson. And Will Rogers had a famous saying, and I'll modify it for the sake of our study, but basically he was like, some cowboys have got to touch the electric fence for themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so the famous popularist Will Rogers, he said, there are some cowboys that just have to touch the electric fence themselves, and I think you can all get what he's getting at. So, and that's kind of what's going on with Balaam here. Balaam is going to know shortly. He is going to know the one true God who is righteous and holy.
Right.
Okay. So he's not just going to be his representative and the person, and he's going to know God on a deeper level. Verse 23.
When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn in his hand, the donkey turned off from the road and went into the field. And Balaam struck the donkey to guide her back onto the road.
Okay, so you have this picture here. You have this picture of this magnificent angel. And again, recall that angel is messenger of the Lord. Okay, this magnificent heavenly angel is standing in the road with sword drawn. Okay, the donkey can see it. Balaam at this point cannot see it. Okay, his eyes are spiritually blind. Even though he's a representative of the one true living God, in a sense, his eyes are spiritually blind because he has allowed compromise to creep into his life and his thought patterns. Okay, so the donkey does what any logical being would do. Sees this rather intimidating angel standing in the road with his rather intimidating sword drawn, and the donkey decides it's probably best if I go around this guy, and he veers off the path. And look at Balaam's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
He strikes the donkey. He immediately strikes the donkey. Okay, and this is important. Pay attention to this because this is going to happen again. But pay attention to this. He hits his donkey and kind of forces it back on the pathway. Needlessly, because the donkey just avoided the obstacle and would have gone back on the path, all of it on its own. If you've ever been around donkeys, they're pretty darn smart. Okay, he's not going to walk in the weeds forever. He's going to go around the problem and get back on the road because the road's the easier path. Okay. Guzik makes a couple of observations at this point. The commentator Guzik, he said, the donkey was more spiritually perceptive than the prophet. The donkey had no spiritual gifts, but at least acknowledged his creator. The prophet had wonderful spiritual gifts, but also a disobedient heart and walk. And then he goes on, the donkey is a perfect picture of a simple, unspectacular, yet obedient follower of God, sensitive to God's direction, a thorn to the disobedient, and a victim of the wrath of the disobedient. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? That's good stuff. That's good stuff. We don't have to be televangelists. We don't have to be polished speakers, speaking before crowds of 1,000 and oohing and awing them with our eloquence and our wordsmithing. Okay, we need to be obedient followers of Jesus Christ. That is our mission. That is our goal. The donkey got it. God's saying, don't go here. The donkey goes off the path and around. And what happens? He gets beaten for it. He makes the disobedient Balaam angry.
Right.
He makes him angry and hence becomes the victim of the disobedience wrath. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. So many times on YouTube I watch a street preacher. There's a couple of them that I really, really enjoy listening to. They are far, far, far wiser than I'll ever be, and I truly enjoy listening to them. But oh my goodness, when they speak truth, like on a college campus or something like that, the wrath that they face is so unbelievable. Well, it is believable.
Right.
But it is so over the top.
It's crazy.
And the names they get called, and sometimes they get things thrown at them, and sometimes they actually get shoved.
Robin has a question.
But that's what we can expect when we're obedient to God. We are going to face wrath. Robin says,
Is this the same reason Elijah's servant couldn't see the angels?
no, not necessarily.
Kind of a little bit different, I think.
It's a little
reasoning.
bit different. Elijah's servant was afraid. He was afraid, and he was filled with doubt at that moment because they were in serious trouble, and he just simply couldn't see it because of his fear. Balaam can't see the spiritual thing or the angel because of his disobedience. So it's a little bit different. As soon as Elijah pointed it out, the servant's eyes were opened, and he did indeed see that. Balaam is going to be, it's going to take a little more to get him to see what's going on here.
So I just wanted to say it's interesting because Wearsby just has an interesting way of describing Balaam, and then an interesting comment on this part right here when he gets up and goes on the donkey. So I just like how he describes him. He says, the key performer in this drama is a mysterious soothsayer named Balaam, a Gentile, like we said, who lived at a place called Pethor, near the Euphrates River. He had a reputation for success in divination, receiving hidden knowledge, especially about the future, and an incantation, the use of occult powers to grant blessing or cursing, and he was willing to sell his services for anyone who could pay his fee. And so Wearsby's take on it is that he actually has a connection basically with Satan, with the devil, and that's how he's been able to provide the services that he's done in the past, and he's gotten a reputation. And he says, like, in those days, people believed that each nation had their own god. So Balaam knew that Jehovah was the God of the Israelites. Therefore, he went to seek the Lord's will about the summons that he had been requested from Balak. So he knows, okay, this nation has this God, this nation has this God, you know.
Right.
So he's just knowledgeable in that area. And then it says, when God came to Balaam this second time and told him to go with the princes. One of the translations, the way the words are translated, kind of gets in different orders and different translations. So I noticed that, I'm not sure which translation Wearsby's using, but it says, only go with them if they come to call on you the next morning. So in the NLT, it says, that night, it says that the men came, since they came to you, since the men have come for you. But in the NASB, it says, if the men have come to call you, rise up and go with them, and then only speak what I tell you to speak. But then Balaam gets up in the morning and gets on his donkey and goes to them. So at this Wearsby's take on this section, because there's weird ways the words can be translated and the phrasing's a little different. So it makes a little bit more sense. Like God had said, okay, if the guys come back to your house in the morning, then you go with them and you'll say what I tell you to say. But in the morning, it says, Balaam, the next morning he got up and saddled his donkey and he went with the leaders. But Wearsby's saying like he went over to them and they didn't come back to his house in the morning. So he disobeyed God already. I mean, we know he's disobeying God in his heart, but he's already like right there. He's disobeying God. So
Right.
Interesting.
Robin asks an additional question. She says, "Is this the same reason Elijah's servants?"
We just read that.
Oh, okay.
That's the same one.
Yep,
And we
same
said
one.
it's different.
Yeah.
That Elijah couldn't,
My
his
bad,
servant couldn't
my
see
bad.
the angels.
So good. That's an interesting take on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Verse 24.
Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path of the vineyards with a stone wall on the side and there's a narrow section basically on that side. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pressed herself against the wall and pressed Balaam's foot against the wall. So basically she was squishing his leg.
Right.
And he struck her again. So he strikes
Okay.
the donkey again.
So the angel again, second time, appears standing in front of his way, okay, and it's a narrow path. There's stone walls on each side. It's narrow, and the donkey there's nowhere to go. He can't go off road, so he's going to squeeze by, because he's probably being goaded by Balaam. And as she tries to squeeze by, his foot scrapes up against the stone wall, which indeed would have been very, very painful. Okay, these are rough stone walls. They're not smooth concrete, which in itself is painful. But so it was probably indeed distressing to Balaam, and he strikes the donkey yet again. But again, the donkey had good reason to move aside. Balaam just couldn't see it at that point. Verse 26.
Then the angel of the Lord went farther and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. So Balaam was angry and struck the donkey with his staff. Again, this donkey's taking a beating.
Indeed it is, right? Again, so the angel goes, and and we don't know what this is. Is it a narrow canyon? We've seen photographs of some of the pathways where it's very steep, a road, and then it drops again. There's really nowhere to turn around. You either go one way or another, right?
Right.
There's no section to get out of the way or make a U-turn or go off the path or anything like that. So the donkey does what donkeys do. When it's stuck, it simply stops.
Just lays down.
Stops and went down, right? And this infuriates Balaam, and so he strikes the donkey again with his staff. Okay, so this is not just a little riding crop where he's tap tapping the donkey or
This
tap
is
tap.
a bigger stick.
This
than
is
that.
a stick. This is a heavy walking stick, and he's so mad he strikes the donkey with the stick, which is ridiculous on multiple levels, right? But he's so mad that this is what he does. Okay.
Verse 28. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she, I guess the female donkey, she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?"
Interesting question. Interesting question. And again, thinking back to all of these street preachers that I listen to and I watch online, and very often they say essentially the same thing. When these individuals just get irate and get in their face and start yelling and screaming, time and time again, I've watched these street preachers say, Why are you so angry with me?
Right. What did I do to you?
What have I said that is a lie? What have I
or
said
that's hurtful
that
to
is,
you?
what have I said that was particularly harmful to you? I've not used your name. I've not called out any of your personal issues. I've not accused you of. I'm merely preaching the gospel, and so that's kind of what we have here going on. The Lord uses the donkey, okay, the victim, to say, what have I done that I deserve this type of treatment? Okay. There's a point to this. So we have to hang on to the narrative here. Don't go away. Okay. Verse 29.
And Balaam said to the donkey, "It is because you have made a mockery of me. If only there had been a sword in my hand, I would have killed you by now."
So
Could have just killed you.
So what is Balaam's complaint? You've made a mockery of me?
So made it look like he didn't know how to ride a donkey.
Yeah.
Like he was,
basically that's what he's saying.
Made it look like I don't
He
know what
said,
I'm doing on
"You're
the back of a
weaving
donkey.
and bobbing. It looks like I don't know how to ride a donkey.
So
you
funny.
know,
You made me look bad.
You made me look bad.
I'm like, wow. Okay.
You made me look bad. But this is fitting. This fits with Balaam's character, right? Because he's a prophet for money. He's a prophet for hire,
Right.
right? His reputation is all he's got.
It's all about the optics.
It's the optics,
All
right?
about the look, how it looks.
Right,
You know,
right.
He's got to look professional. He's got to look influential. He's got to
Right.
look, like he knows what he's doing. He certainly has to look like he knows how to ride a donkey.
Right.
In order to have the respect that he thinks he is due.
Right, and
So-
think back. Just think to some rather well-known pastors or church leaders who have fallen, and many times they try to cover it up. They try to cover it up, and they make it worse.
Because I don't want to look bad.
They don't want to look bad. Eventually, they'll say, "Well, I wanted to protect the Lord's reputation." But that's after they've been caught and it's obvious that they've done sinful things, and then they pull out I wanted to protect the reputation of the Lord. Well, if you really did that, you wouldn't have done what you did in the first place.
Right.
If the Lord's reputation was your first and foremost thought, wow. What is that?
Is that the ice machine?
Maybe. So, sorry, there was just a big loud bang back there. It's kind of...
Is that the same bang you heard before?
It's exactly the same. Yeah. So anyway, sorry about that.
Either someone's breaking in or the ice machine's really empty, and so
Yeah.
it's dropping.
So
We don't know.
anyway, so sorry.
Giant raccoons.
Momentary
It's
distraction.
not a talking donkey. We know that.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing any speaking.
Momentary distraction.
Sorry.
But
What was that? We should text Pastor Paul. What's
Yeah.
the big loud bang?
Sure. But anyway, yeah. So Balaam is worried about his reputation.
Yeah.
You've made a mockery of me, okay? And then he said, if only I had had a sword in my hand, I would have killed you. Really?
Then how would you be getting to where you're going?
Really?
You're going to kill the
you would
donkey
kill
from
the
underneath
donkey,
you?
right?
That doesn't sound very wise.
But wait. Watch what happens.
Okay, but the donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your donkey on which you've ridden all your life to this day? Have I ever been in the habit of doing such a thing to you?" And he's like, "Oh, no,
Right.
no." And he said no.
So the donkey says,
So the donkey's like,
so, and this is not an exaggeration. Donkeys are rather long-lived.
oh yeah.
They're long-lived. I don't exactly know how old Balaam is, but it's not unreasonable to think that he grew up with this donkey. This was his donkey, his faithful companion, actually, right? And served him well, has taken him many places. Again, Balaam is a prophet for hire. It's highly likely that he's ridden to many places to do whatever that it is that he's done. Okay, and the donkey has faithfully carried him there, and so now the donkey says, "Have I ever been in the habit of doing such a thing to you?
Yeah.
Has my character ever been such that I go off into the weeds, or I've intentionally harmed you?"
Yeah, or I laid down while we're in the middle of a journey,
right.
or any of those things. So Robin says, this is the classic question. Thank you for asking. He didn't think it's strange that a donkey was talking. even didn't think that as strange as Eve didn't think as strange a serpent was talking. Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
Eve spoke with a serpent, like
Right.
creature in the garden. And Wearsby says, I like what he says about this idea about, well, why wasn't Balaam shocked when his beast spoke with him with a man's voice? This certainly wasn't an everyday occurrence, even for a professional soothsayer. But just like you brought up, Robin, Satan spoke through a serpent when he deceived Eve.
Right.
And it's possible that in the past, Satan's demons had spoken to Balaam through animals.
Exactly.
So, and I love this comment. So, like this is a soothsayer. This isn't really a God ordained prophet. This is a person who has a relationship with Satan, and Satan gives him knowledge, right? So this is who this is. And now Yahweh, Jehovah God, is communicating with him. So in the past, Satan's demons probably spoke to Balaam through animals. But a person has reached a very low level in life if God has to use brute beasts to communicate his mind. That's what Wearsby's comment is. So you're at a pretty low level in life if God's got to use a donkey or any kind of beast to talk to you.
Right.
To get your attention, right? To talk to you.
And if you ever, I've watched a few interviews with people who were heavily involved in witchcraft and stuff like that, and they describe bizarre things that when they were deeply engaged in the dark arts and the dark occultic practices, they didn't think anything of it.
Right.
It's like, you don't think that's kind of weird? And they're like, not at the time, I didn't. I do now. But back then, I was so steeped in it, it was business as usual.
Just how things happen.
Just how things work. So, if indeed Balaam was a prophet for hire and he was listening to whatever voices spoke, then it's not unreasonable that he's not shocked that a donkey would talk to him.
Right.
Because he's probably had visions and all kinds of things.
He's had conversations with other animals or heard voices.
Yeah, demonic forces and stuff like that.
Spoken through other creatures.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
But it's the first time for his personal donkey to be the speaker, probably.
Right.
Because the donkey just is given this voice by God.
Right.
At this point in time.
And we've watched some interviews, and I know we've spoken on this before, but we've watched interviews where people have, for years sometimes, felt like they were communicating with aliens from another planet or something like that, or outer space, and they would speak with them on a regular basis sometimes. And then they became Christians and they realized that the alleged aliens were actually demons, assuming the form of an alien that this individual would be comfortable with.
Find acceptable.
So it is not unreasonable that Balaam was like, okay, the donkey's talking to me.
He's not shocked that it's a donkey talking to him. Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. Interesting. It'd be shocking for us, but.
Right. Nonetheless, good point, Robin. Good point. But nonetheless, the donkey speaks up and rightly says, "Haven't I served you well?
Right.
And so why are you hitting me?
Right.
Why are you beating me?
Right.
Why now?" And then Balaam is so mad. And then verse 31 kicks in.
Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed all the way to the ground. Balaam did. Then the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out as an adversary, because your way was reckless and contrary, perverse to me."
Right. So some translations use the term perverse, and there's whole sermons written on this idea of being perverse to the will of God. And so it's a good word. That's why we included it in here.
The NLT says, "Look, I have come to block your way because you are stubbornly resisting me."
Yeah. Right. So kind of circling back to like some of what Robin was saying. So at that moment, the Lord chose to open Balaam's spiritual eyes, and he saw the angel standing with his sword drawn, and he bows down. Now he's struck with fear. He cannot deny that a heavenly host is standing there before him, and then the angel calls him out. I've stood in front of you, and he gives him a reason, because your way was reckless and contrary to me. This set of verses just reminds me that there are so many, sadly, so many people who are absolutely defiant. And they're like, when I get to heaven and I stand before God, I'm going to spit in his eye. I'm going to tell him where to go. This is what's going to happen.
Right.
When reality strikes and they see God for who God is,
Right.
they're going to hit the ground with fear and trembling.
And I'm not
saying that like that with any kind of giddiness or like.
No, it's with fear and trembling.
It's terrible. It's a
Right.
terrible, terrible scene.
Right.
And that's what we want to convey here, that the Lord is serious business. And this angel opens his eyes, and Balaam can do nothing. Balaam, who thought he was all that, right?
Right.
Boom, he is on the ground.
Right.
He is on the ground.
Nobody will be able to stand
Right.
in the presence of God's glory.
Right.
Nobody will be able to stand.
And
That's why it says every knee will bow, but every knee will bow, and whether or not they really want to,
Right.
they will. They will be.
will.
It's like in the Garden of
This is
Gethsemane
what
on the
Robin
night of the
said.
arrest when
Yeah.
Jesus said, "I am."
Right.
Right?
And please understand
That's right,
that
Robin.
when
Every
we
knee.
say that, there is not like, there's no delight in that. There's that terrible realization that people we know and care about are going to be faced with that dilemma. And that is not what we're about. That is not what we want. We want everyone
Right.
that we can possibly get to know Jesus Christ, that he is Lord and Savior. That's what we're about.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, which is like why we're doing this, and why we preach,
Right.
and why we witness, and why we serve the Lord, and why we give to churches like 14:6 that have outreach events, exclaimed.org, the part of what we're on tonight, live.exclaim.org. The exclaim.org, for some of you who don't know, is the outreach arm of 14:6 Church here in Westminster.
Right.
And that's what they do. Like this Saturday, we're all going down to San Diego,
Yeah.
and we're going to put up the big mobile stage, and we're going to have a Christian concert and singers, and we're going to have people give testimonies and
Right.
sermonettes and message, and then, souls prayerfully will be saved, either right there on the spot, or maybe if they're viewing some of it later, or some of it might be live streamed. So we don't know. However God wants to use it.
Right.
I just want to be God's donkey. I would like to be the animal, the thing
mouthpiece.
the mouthpiece, the thing
Yeah.
that God speaks through. I want to be his faithful servant, and I want to be God's donkey. That would be a great T-shirt. Pastor Paul needs to. We should be God's donkey.
So the angel now speaks to Balaam. Balaam, his spiritual eyes have been opened, and he sees this frightful angel standing there, and the angel is like, I come as an adversary. You do not want a messenger of God to call you an adversary.
Right.
You do not want that.
Yeah.
Okay, seriously. That is the last thing you should want, is a messenger of God to say, I'm against you.
I'm your adversary.
Right.
Robin has another question. Will we ever be able to look on the face of God even in our new bodies?
I don't know, Robin. I don't know. We'll see Jesus.
Right.
We'll see Jesus, and because Scripture tells us, if you've seen me, you've seen
The Father.
You've
If you've
seen
seen
the
the
Father,
Son,
yeah.
you've seen the Father.
So, but I don't know if we'll ever be able to see the Father.
I'm not sure. I mean, I kind of feel like, like, yeah, when in heaven, I mean, there'll be the relationship will be different,
It will be.
and more direct, even.
And it may be because
but
we know
I
that
feel like,
God
but I'm not
walked
sure,
with
Robin.
Adam. We know
yeah.
He walked with Adam and
Yeah.
Eve. We know that He spoke. There have been times when He's made Himself known and visible. So, but I really don't know. That's an excellent question, but I don't know. So here we are. We'll try and get as far as we can. Okay. So the angel says, "Your way was reckless and contrary to me."
Yep.
So legally, the angel has every grounds for simply slaying Balaam right there. Just simply saying, "You're contrary to me. You're contrary as a messenger of God. Therefore, you're done." Okay, but he doesn't. Okay. Verse 33.
But the donkey saw me and turned away from me. Sorry. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If she had not turned away from me, I certainly would have killed you just now and let her live. So Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing in the way against me. Now then, if it is displeasing to you, I will turn back.
I will turn back. So Balaam, he gets it. He finally gets it. And notice what the angel says is that if the donkey hadn't seen me and did what she did, I would have just killed you outright. But so we can't save anybody. Only the Holy Spirit can do that.
All right.
But we can intercede. And when we intercede, do not think that your prayers are returning void.
Right.
When we intercede for those whom we love and we care about, it's making an impact. Potentially saving their life.
Right.
So please don't think that your prayers are pointless or wasted or empty or unheard. That is not the case. And that's the example we can take from this.
I just like how the angel said, like he said to him, what Balaam had just said to the donkey.
Yep.
I would have killed you right now. I
Yep.
could just kill you because
Yep.
Balaam had just said that to the donkey. So the angel's like totally standing up for the donkey. I would have killed you and let her go. So it's awesome. But because that's how much God cares about animals and his creation and creatures. He cares about humankind. Of course, we are special in his eyes and his creation. But he cares a lot about the animals too. So he angel stood up for the donkey, which is awesome.
So
But Wiersbe says, when Balaam here says the words, I have sinned, it was actually not evidence of sincere repentance.
right.
So he knew that he should say those words because, again, he's familiar with the gods of all the different nations around. So he's familiar with some of their traditions and
Right.
some of their offerings and some of the sayings. So he said those words. But, even Pharaoh said them in Exodus 9:27.
Yep.
King Saul said it in 1 Samuel a couple times. Judas Iscariot said it. They all uttered those words. But none of them turned to God really in their heart for mercy. So just be careful, that if, just because somebody is saying the right words doesn't mean they're sincere.
Right.
So, I mean.
And the way you can kind of discern that in this passage is how Balaam phrases it. Now then, if it is displeasing to you,
Right.
I'll turn back. It's not, I have sinned, I'm going home.
Right.
I've sinned, I don't want nothing to do with this sinful thing that I was thinking of doing.
He still wanted to follow his agenda.
Right.
He still wanted to go collect his payday.
That's
have
how
his
you
payday.
know. That's how you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
sinned. Is that displeasing to you?
Right.
Should I, whatever
So-
you think.
We're going to keep reading about Balaam here for the next couple of chapters, so let's move forward.
Verse 35. But the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, Go with the men, but you shall speak only the word that I tell you. So Balaam went along with the representatives of Balak.
Okay, so it's getting complicated.
All
The
right.
story's getting complicated, but the angel says, no, go with these men. Again, it's to show Balaam's character, and hopefully it's to speak to Balaam too. But verse 36.
When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at the city of Moab, which is on the Ammon border, at the extreme end of the border. Then Balak said to Balaam, Did I not urgently send word to you to call for you? Why did you not come to me? Am I really unable to honor you? So Balak's like, why didn't you come faster? Why didn't you come right away?
So on the one
Because
hand,
he's the king. He's used to getting what he wants when he asks for
but
it.
on the one hand, he goes out to meet Balaam,
Right.
which is very unkingly. But on the other hand, then he reprimands Balaam and says, hey, I called you. Why didn't you come? Well, watch what Balaam does.
So Balaam said to Balak, Behold, I have come to you now. I'm here now. Am I really able to speak anything? The word that God puts in my mouth, that only shall I speak. The only thing I'm going to say is what God tells me.
That's his.
And
That's
Balaam
what he
went
said.
with Balak, and they came to Kirath Huzoth.
Okay, so he kind of warns him, I'm only going to speak what the Lord tells me I can speak. Okay, he's just been frightened.
He's
just
like,
been,
I'm not saying whatever you want me to say.
So
I'm going to say what Jehovah God tells me to say.
at this point in the narrative, he's like, I'm only going to do what God wants me to do. Okay, but this is a long narrative, so there's many more verses written about Balaam. So, but we're going to cover the last one in this chapter tonight.
So Balak sacrificed oxen and sheep and sent some to Balaam and the leaders who were with him. Then it came about in the morning that Balak took Balaam and brought him up to the high places of Baal, and he saw from there a portion of the people.
Okay, now as a true prophet, Balaam should have said, nope, not going up there. That is a place of a pagan idol. I do not belong there. But as we've learned, Balaam is a very compromised individual.
Right, he doesn't really belong to Jehovah God.
Right.
He belongs to whatever God somebody wants him to believe in and know about for the price.
Right.
But the sacrifices, the oxen and sheep, those were made to the god Baal. They were
Yeah.
not made to Jehovah God. So
Yeah.
don't be confused by that.
Right.
They weren't making an offering to Yahweh, Jehovah God.
No.
Balak's God is the god of Baal, Baal,
Right.
like it says here in 41. So that's who they made the offering to.
Right, and that should have been a tip to Balaam as a true man of God to say like, nope.
Nope. You
Nope,
just
that's a
made an
big nope.
offering to
Yeah.
to the wrong God, buddy.
Right. so we get a little bit further insight into this character of Balaam, and that brings us to the end of chapter 22.
Yep.
And are we here next Thursday?
I think so. Yes,
We are here next Thursday.
I believe. Wait, what's the date? Was today the 3rd?
Today's the 3rd.
Yeah, so it's only the 10th. So
The
yeah.
10th. We are here next
We'll
Thursday.
be gone the week after that.
Yeah.
The 17th we'll be out of town.
But we are here.
But next Thursday we'll be here.
We'll
Keep
be here.
going.
7 p.m. You know where to
Read
find
ahead,
us.
guys. Let us know what you think. Okay?
There. Great questions. Thank
Thank you
one
very
and all.
much. Love you
Have
guys.
a blessed week.
Have a
See
good
you
night.
later. Bye.